something that may seem a bit off topic for you. I have a friend, and she was kind of like my one of three foster mothers I had when I was growing up. And honestly, like these people were like known to the family. They weren't just like strangers. Um, One of them was a real successful real estate agent, and her husband ran a real successful construction company, and they became self-starting millionaires back when the 80s, when being a millionaire, turning into a millionaire meant something. It was like, whoa. Now it would be like the equivalent of like 4 or 5 million at least, I think, but I could be wrong. Um, Probably at least four. Then, so they weren't like rich, but they were well off, and it was great. It was one of, why am I going on this tangent? I just lured you in, and I'll hit the other topics in a minute. But first, you have to listen to my personal stories because I feel like talking about it. So, John and Ginger Froon, they had a little son named Mikey, and he just like quietly adapted to being my new little brother. Like, their family was had. I mean, I really liked living there. We lived in Lake Arrowhead in a big house. I had my own bedroom with wood floors and a balcony, a record player, and so many records you couldn't believe it. All I had to do was go to school, do my homework, do my chores, and go on family outings. Then they would do family outings like almost every weekend. They would have family dinners almost every single night. Um, there was a velvet Elvis on the wall the size of Texas. And Ginger would have actual cleaning ladies come in and clean the house. It was great. I mean, ladies employed as cleaners, I should say. Um, I got to go with her to work before she took me to work with her. We'd go fishing, or we'd go like if Mikey had little league, we'd go and bring juice boxes and stuff. And like um, I basically went from not graduating except for socially, like being held back, and then socially progressed like usually the next year, but not always, like the entire elementary school. It's a long story. I I still to this day don't know if I should talk about it like with my dad. I think that he had a job that kept us in like upper middle class houses, but we would move like up to like 3 times a year would be normal, but there would be like no sense of chaos. His previous boss would give him like the best of like reviews. What he did is he would work for people who owned a lot of like, if you owned, say, multiple apartment buildings, condominiums, and stuff like that, basically my dad would be the guy hired to go over all your accounting, check all the books, because he could like literally the guy could count cards. He was so good with finances that I can't even like the way he could work with books, and like what he could see in the books was like amazing. Apparently, and they loved him for it. So he'd get worked around with different companies, and he'd go in there, he'd do all their get all their accounting straightened out in a few months, and then he'd hire all new staff if they needed it, keep the ones that they could keep. He'd get the managers. These are huge apartment buildings and condominiums. Some of them were super fancy, like in Mission Viejo on the hill, like with tennis. I think they had tennis courts, pool, and a gym, and like it was like really nice. Um, so like he would be in charge of like hiring who would be able to work with the finances, who would be able to manage the apartment complexes, who would And then he would move on to the next place, and we just moved around like that. I didn't never really thought much of it. But when I went to the well, my parents got divorced, and living with my mom was difficult. So my dad like secured me a place with his friends, and his friends had, they had a nice lifestyle, and they were fun. They were in really, I don't want to say fun, it almost cheapens it. Like they were really enjoyable as a family, and that's like an understatement. John would go to work, and every night he would come home, and both of them worked, but um, John would like come home later and who worked longer. Like Ginger would kind of run around and do real estate and do stuff. I'm not saying she didn't socialize, but she didn't do the hard work. Like he was running construction crews and shit like that, and they were flipping houses. And he'd do the construction to work on the house, and like she was a real estate agent, so she'd buy the house, he'd fix it, they'd sell it. And so um, he would come home, and John goes by the name of Froon. Which apparently my dad, because he knew him from high school, he's always gone by the name of Froon. And he's a little bald on top, but he has like nice long hairs going everywhere else, like just to the shoulder. But he's like somehow super respectable that way, and I don't know how to explain it. It's just a look on his face. And he when he comes home from work, he kind of like goes straight into his bedroom. He goes in a private like entrance to his room, and he doesn't come out like to the main part of the house for like usually 1 or 2 hours. Like you hear music in the distance, and like a little bit of pot wafts from under the door, even though Ginger makes him like smoke in a side room that has ventilation, and supposedly the rest of us have no clue that this goes on. But then he comes out with his eyes real red, and then he like interacts with the family the rest of the night. And um, Ginger one time busted along because of a bong hit on a special bong that they had made that was so big. My dad told me about it. It didn't happen during my time. It happened years ago, apparently, when she was younger. She still lived a super long life after that, but she did have a bong incident once I heard about years before she had the kids. And they had made a special bong that was like astronomical or something. And she'd go to the hospital. And she still lived though. Oh, she was a redhead. She is a redhead. Um, yep. Where's it going with John and Ginger? Then the other, another one of my foster mothers was uh, I would say like her and her son were both, how do I explain it? Like, adjuncting wizarding community operating as a faction out of Babylon. That's a quartet of Israel, most likely from the genetic profile and that they had. And then they were witches, though, um, not practicing the other religion. They were practicing basic paganism. And she was a business lady and writing a book, and had multiple personality disorder back when they called it that, and her therapist was working on the book with her. It's probably been published. And then the third foster mother I had was the first female prison counselor in an all men's prison in the state of California. She went to U Saints, and she trained spies for Vietnam, and it's an autobiography of her book, which you can find her books on Amazon. And her name is Patricia Weisler. She actually talks about me in one of the books at least once. It's a story about a bear, but you have to read it. And then those are the three. Now, that being said, I was thinking about this documentary I was watching, and that really seems to have nothing to do with everything that I was just talking about. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, and you're going to be like, what the fuck is that? I'm watching this documentary, and I know that I could get in trouble if I show you too much. So I'm just going to show you a picture. Welcome. I'm going to tell you what websites it's on, and you can go look at it yourself. Okay, but like, I'm going to tell you what I think about this. It's a supposed minotaur skeleton, artfully put together, they say, using a human skeleton and I believe a horse. Okay, are you ready? You ready for the horror? Wait. Pause. Don't let it pass. Okay. Okay. Get ready. All right. They say that the person who did this actually took the skeleton of an animal and actually like fused it with I'm going to turn the captions on for a minute, but I'm going to tell you where you can get it online. Let's see. Okay, so I started thinking about this. First, we'll look at it and then we'll give it a little captions, perhaps. The Minotaur is the next one. This one has its own story. Okay, between myth. These are the most dangerous artifacts from history if you want to look it up. That's the name of the video. Straight out of the ancient Greek legend. The European curiosity, the bizarre skeleton immediately sparked wild rumors about its origins, constructed with startling anatomical precision. The piece seamlessly combines genuine human and equine bones, unsettling theories of secret experiments or occult rituals conducted centuries ago. Let's talk about this for a second. The elder medicine man from the Navajo tribe is that the people who lived in Chaco Canyon could take a heart out of one dog and put it in another dog and switch hearts on them and keep both dogs alive. Now, from that position, could people like them have done something like this? Is it possible? Yes. I speculate it is, and I'm going to tell you how I think it's possible. It's going to be horrific, but I'll tell you. There's a new therapy that they're using for kidney transplants and stuff like that to prevent people from having a rejection, but where they don't have to take the medication that prevents it. What they do is they give them small amounts of certain like antibodies and genetics and things from the person who they're going to get the transplant from, and like kind of like titrated doses leading up to the time of the transplant to where their body has decided that this is now no longer a foreign body and they don't need the medication. If you were to, this is how I speculate they did it. They would have treated the human and the horse with the antibodies and the various genetic stuff of the other species for months leading up to it until they would not reject the other one. Then they would have had to create like a sort of pseudo or a hybrid placenta that would have connected the top portion of the body and the back and the bottom portion of the body while keeping them together, because that's how you would get past the different construction of vessels and everything else and the nutrients, just like with a baby. And then you'd be able to switch them. But then what would you do? You'd then have a head, the human, like a horse head on a human body. And then I started thinking like, oh yeah, like in Egypt, like they had the jackal head on the human body. What if they actually transplanted a jackal head on a human body? And a human head is running around on a jackal somewhere. Deep thoughts. Oh, who's talking? Hi, I'm talking to you.